Hi there. If you're a US based performing artist traveling internationally with the support of a federal grant, your flights aren't just about cost or convenience. You need to follow the Fly America Act. In this quick video, which is for educational purposes only, I'll walk you through what the Fly America Act is, when it applies, and best practices to consider when booking compliant flights. This video is not exhaustive. Be sure to check the requirements of the Fly America Act yourself before purchasing any flights. The Fly America Act is a federal regulation that requires travelers using U.S. government funding, like grants funded by the National Endowment for the Arts, to purchase flights on U.S. carriers whenever possible. That means if your airfare is being paid with federal dollars, you might not be able to book the cheapest or most direct international flight. In most situations, you must book through a U.S. airline. The Fly America Act applies anytime your travel is paid for in part or in full by federal funds or by funds that you are using to match federal funds. This would be if your grant has a required cost share. That includes funds received directly from the National Endowment for the Arts or through a grant program that distributes NEA funds, U.S. Embassy funded travel, or federal exchange programs like Arts Envoy. If the tour is privately funded or supported by a non federal source, the Act may not apply, but always check with your grantor just to be safe and review the terms of the Fly America Act on your own to confirm the eligibility of the flights you plan to book. To be compliant, look for flights that are operated by or ticketed through a U.S. carrier. If a foreign airline is operating the flight, it must be under a U.S. airline flight number. That's called a code share. For this example flight to Lima, Peru, you can see in the listing that LATAM is operating some of the flights, and you're given the option to purchase with Delta or for a slight discount with LATAM. Even though the LATAM version of the flight is cheaper, you would need to purchase the flight through Delta to ensure the flight is under a US flight number. They say there's an exception to every rule, and there are several exceptions to the Fly America Act. Scan this QR code to visit a U.S. General Services Administration page for current, up-to-date exceptions. So let's take a look at some of these in more depth. First, if you're searching on Google or Kayak for a flight and there's no U.S. airline available for your destination or route, that can qualify as a documentable exception, enabling you to book the flight that is available with a foreign airline. Similarly, if booking a U.S. carrier flight would extend your travel time by 24 hours or more compared to a flight operated by a foreign airline, that's an exception you can document too. You can also use a foreign carrier if there are no U.S. carriers that offer nonstop or direct flights between the origin and destination, and using a U.S. carrier would result in at least one of the following situations. Increases the number of aircraft changes outside the United States by two or more. So the foreign airline might offer a direct flight, and the U.S. carrier has one layover in Mexico City. You still need to purchase the U.S. carrier flight. If all U.S. carrier routes had two aircraft changes outside the U.S., you could then buy the foreign flight instead. Another option would be if it extends travel time by 6 hours or more to purchase the U.S. carrier flight, or if purchasing that U.S. carrier flight requires a connecting time of 4 hours or more at an overseas interchange point. The fourth exception is self-explanatory, so I won't talk about it, but the last one here is the biggest one and deserves a little bit more focus. The U.S. has what are called open skies agreements with select foreign countries. These agreements apply to countries like the European Union nations, including Norway and Iceland, as well as with Australia, Switzerland, and Japan, but only under certain conditions. Scan the QR code for additional information about open skies agreements or review the link in the video description. The Open Skies Agreement with the European Union is pretty generous. Generally speaking, you may use any European-based airline, including Norway and Iceland, to any destination they service, so long as the flight touches down in a European Union country, Norway, or Iceland at some point during the route. So traveling direct from Atlanta to Munich, Germany, you can book a flight on Lufthansa. Or maybe you're traveling to Morocco and Air France offers a flight that has a layover in Paris before continuing on to your destination. That works too. When considering this exception, just remember that the United Kingdom is no longer part of the European Union, and so UK based airlines don't get the same treatment. The Open Skies agreements with Australia, Switzerland, and Japan are more restrictive. Generally, you can only use airlines from these countries if the origin and destination is either the US or the respective country where the airline is based, and there must not be a city pairs contract flight between the points of origin and departure. So if you are looking at flights for these countries, be sure to read up more on this agreement and its additional requirements. When booking a flight using federal funds on an airline that is not a US carrier, it is important to document the exception that made this allowable. The US State Department has a helpful Fly America Act waiver checklist, which you can find by scanning this QR code or at the links in the video description. When documenting an exception, you'll want to keep copies of your flight confirmation and boarding passes, receipts that show the US carrier or codeshare flight number, and any additional documents to support your exception, like screenshots. That's your crash course on the Fly America Act. Download our Fly America Act cheat sheet at the link in the description, which offers a few more educational tips to stay organized and compliant. Always check the terms of the Act yourself before booking.